Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats.
You know, sometimes you run into stories that you actually can't believe haven't been told. And if you're within the sound of my voice, guess what? That must mean you're in the seats with once more. And as always, my name is Dave Voigt, and I'm the host of this podcast, where we sit down with a wide ranging variety of entertainment industry professionals and pick their brain about current projects, state of the industry, how they got started, and so very much more in a light and in a conversational fashion. And, you know, if you like how we do things around here, I'm going to assume that you do because you're listening. And if you are, keep listening. Subscribe. Hit that subscribe button. Give us a 5-star rating on your podcast provider of choice. We're available pretty much everywhere. Places like Apple, Amazon, Spotify, Google. And plus, we archive every single one of our episodes over our In the Seats YouTube channel. So if you can give us a like and subscribe there as well, we'd absolutely appreciate it. Also, don't hesitate to check us out on social media. We're on the Facebook, the Twitter, the Instagram, the Letterboxd, the TikTok. I don't know, the Blue Sky, the Threads, all sorts of fun spots. At In the Seats for all sorts of fun updates. And finally, and I do dare say most importantly, please pay us a visit over to In the Seats, intheseats.ca for all the latest and greatest from the world of film, television, basically the moving image at large. Because guess what? If we love to watch it and write about it and talk about it, we love it that much more when you come by and read about it and listen about it. So please do us that ultimate kindness. Come on by and pay us a visit. Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. In theaters and on video on demand. Today, right now, we got a good one. It is a real interesting one. It is called The Island Between the Tides, a little piece of Canadiana sci-fi, murder, mystery, horror, drama. A lot of mishmash in between. It's actually based on a J.M. Barrie story, and it's a story of a young woman who follows a mysterious melody onto a remote tidal island where she crosses back over at the next low tide and emerges into a world where she's missed the past 25 years. And things get weirder and weirder and weirder. This is a really fantastic piece of homegrown cinema from writers and directors Austin Andrews and Andrew Holmes, or as they like to be known, Triple AH, or whatever acronym we can come up with. But there are a couple of fun, well-rounded guys who are industry veterans who've worked on a bunch of stuff, and they've really poured their heart and soul into this one. And again, it's a really stunning piece of work. It's a really good piece of genre cinema. It's just a darn good piece of cinema. Period. And I was playing at the Carlton here in Toronto, starting on Friday, I do believe, and a few other places around Canada. I know it's also available on video on demand platforms. Uh, and again, this is one of those ones you should check out because, as we always say here, supporting Canadian cinema it's just kind of important, at least from our perspective. And, you should go do that, because, what the hell is he going to do? Go support Canadian, Island Between the Tides, Canadian cinema. Go do it. We love it. I know you will too. But, before you do, though, enjoy our talk with Austin and Andrew about The Island Between the Tides, because it's a darn good one. Guys, just to kick this off, I mean, I just watched the movie last night, and I mean, goddamn, I loved it. This is such a
Oh,
ride.
amazing.
I'm
Thanks so much.
so into this movie, man. It is so good. Just congratulations on that, and just thank you so much for the time today. I really appreciate this.
Oh, thanks for taking the time to watch the movie. We appreciate that.
Now, I guess my first question for whichever Austin or Andy wants to answer, like walk me through the origin of making this movie and telling the story, because wasn't this originally a J.M. Barrie story?
Yeah, I'll start with the first part of this. So, I mean, this has been the culmination of, since I was in my early teens. So, a couple of decades at this point of having a strange and unlikely fixation on this mostly forgotten J.M. Barrie play. He wrote it 20 years after Peter Pan, as a more mature reworking of some of the themes and ideas from Peter Pan.
For sure, yeah.
And like retrospectively, critics have kind of reframed it as something of like a thematic sequel to Peter Pan, and it's staggering to us that in all that time, especially the last 2 decades, although Andy will touch on the second part of this, there hasn't been an adaptation of this play that feels somehow more suited to the present moment than it
Right.
did to 1920 when it was written.
Yeah, even I mean, there's some weird connection points that came through it, but realistically, Austin and I, we premiered our first directorial debut, very small, micro low budget film called Lord Jones is Dead that we shot in Johannesburg, South Africa, in 2016. And from that point, we'd been developing and writing two other projects that had very real traction. They were set up with different producers. We were traveling all over the world to make these things happen. And one of them is set in Svalbard, the archipelago north of Norway, northernmost place in the world. And to our demise, or to our sadness, I guess I should say, the projects kind of got stuck in turnaround in development hell. And we had a long sit down chat at our favorite fried chicken place, Down Low Chicken in Vancouver. And we said, we need to kind of take our future into our own hands. We need to write something that we're going to produce. Fortunately for Austin and I, we're directing partners, but we also work in different areas of film independently. Austin's a Emmy award-winning editor. I'm a producer. I had a handful of films under my belt as a producer. So I said, let's just do this ourselves, but we need an idea that we can go forward with. And Austin, told this great story of how he fell in love with the play Mary Rose, written by J.M. Barrie when he was a teenager. And to me, naturally the producer brain tickles on. It's like, oh, that's a little bit of IP that maybe we could help exploit this movie. And as we kind of looked into it further and further, had just entered the public domain. Wow. And we hadn't, public domain's tricky because there's US public domain, there's Canadian public domain, and obviously with J.M. Barrie, there's UK public domain. So we got the lawyers on it immediately and basically got it not all the way cleared, but like cleared enough where it's like you can go spend a couple of years writing a script. But through this research, and I think Austin may have knew about this before a little bit, but we had discovered that this was Hitchcock's dream project.
Oh, wow.
He saw the original play adaptation in 1920 in London's West End and fell in love with the play. And he bought the rights for it. And very famously, the studio had a deal with him that he could make any movie that was less than $3 million budget. But they said you can make any movie but Mary Rose by J.M. Barrie because no one wants to show up to see a movie about a ghost. And they basically said, no, you can't make this movie. So, Hitchcock told his biographer basically on his deathbed, his life's greatest regret was never turning Mary Rose into a feature film.
Yeah, although it come very close. So this was just after Vertigo. He had Tippi Hedren attached to play the lead. Bernard Herrmann had already been doing some deep dives into Norman O'Neill's score for the original West End production. And in fact, there are references to that score of Norman O'Neill's, which you can find the sheet music online, in the Vertigo score. And wow. So there's all these little sort of traces and bits of residue from Hitchcock's dream that ended up influencing a lot of his later films, right down to Tippi Hedren's daughter, Melanie Griffith, who grew up getting told and read Mary Rose as a bedtime story because of Tippi Hedren's attachment. Her and Antonio Banderas, her then husband,
right,
mounted an effort to adapt it in the early 2000s. But when Original Sin, I think was Antonio Banderas's film that he directed, that bombed, and he lost the cachet to be able to make Mary Rose as his next one. And they spent, I think it was $100,000 for the 100,000 US for
five
the
years
rights
before we started writing.
Yeah.
And, that kind of goes into, for much of the world, this horrible thing that the pandemic was. But for us, that happened months after we decided to start writing this story. Which afforded us, incredible time and focus. And Austin and I were pretty much neighbors at that point. So, it was just a short walk to meet up with each other or go to a park or whatever it was to start flushing out the story. And, that was end of 2019 when we started. And, the movie's, just going into theaters in Ontario now.
Love it. Love it. And I mean, this proof positive, something that I've been saying for years, that fried chicken grease does unlock sort of the creative neurons in the brain. So thank you for proving that for me.
Yeah, we're happy to be evidence.
Yeah, you're not going to be find two better guys to defend that thought process of yours.
And David, next time you're in Vancouver, hit us up. We'll take you to the Down Low Chicken Shack.
Absolutely.
Done deal. That's our spot.
Done deal. Now, I guess my next question is, it's the old joke of, 90% of the job is casting. And Paloma is just so damn good in this. And I can imagine, especially for you guys, as you're sort of working on adapting it, and it's like, I'm sure there was a moment going, shit, we got to find the right person or this movie's not going to work. Like, talk to me about over in Cologne.
A
I
moment.
yeah, I got like goosebumps right now thinking about it because it was a scary thing. The very first role that we started casting for, looking for, obviously a lot of this movie was not, maybe not obviously, but a lot of this movie was offers to people that we knew, and not we're not talking about star cast. Like
Right, right,
it was people that we know or people that we've worked with. The role of Jared was essentially written for David Mazouz. Megan, who plays Mary Rose, is a very good friend of Austin's, and actually David and Megan worked together with a movie on Austin, Argentina, years before. So a lot of this, we had the idea we want to work with good people, and casting Lily was so important because in the original play, Lily has this like kind of frozen sense of adolescence. Like she's arrested in her youth, and we needed to find someone that also hit the age range, kind of got the original idea. And kudos to a lot of the actors in Vancouver that we looked at. A lot of them had read the play, understood the background of what we were going for, and really understood it. But it ended up being a 3-country search. I think we had over 2,500 submissions. We were the first show in Vancouver to be back in the actual room, physical room for auditions, which was really great for us. And we actually didn't attach Paloma until about 3 weeks before production, because we just hadn't found the right person. We saw a lot of really great people. Unfortunately, a lot of the age discrepancy was there, where it wasn't viable that she was the right age for the people
right.
that we really liked. We actually had another actor, basically verbally attached, but had another show going in another country, and it would have handcuffed us too much to make that work. And um, fortunately for us, it didn't work out because we fell in love with Paloma, and it really, really turned out well for us. And couldn't find someone better to make a movie with, especially in the kind of the COVID era of filmmaking. Paloma's just such a monster and a trooper, and understood the writing. But when you talk about actors who are good to work with, she's right at the very tippy top of my list.
Love
Yeah,
it.
the right temperament, but also, I mean, we were a camp shoot. We were shooting in northern British Columbia,
Like, yeah.
22 hours by ferry from the northern tip of Vancouver Island, which itself is 6 hours from Vancouver. And so we had to go up there with such intention and purpose, knowing that wouldn't be like shooting in the lower mainland or in a more accessible urban center where there would be it was such a process to get anyone or anything up there. We're the first feature film ever to shoot in Prince Rupert, and we gradually understood why. But now looking at it and seeing the production value and even the level of participation that we got from the community was unparalleled.
That's absolutely wild. I mean, I love that. But I mean, and it brings up another question I want to ask, because I do love the visual aesthetic of the film. And I mean, it creates mood, it creates sort of that ambiance of like being creepy and shit going on. And I mean, the uninitiated will think, oh, well, they just shot half the movie in the dark. That's easy. It's like, no, it's not. Shooting in the dark's really fucking hard. How did you guys manage to sort of create uh that sort of underlit aesthetic, or sort of the natural light aesthetic is probably the best way to put it.
That's a great way to put it. And our DP Danny Lavoie deserves all the flowers for the aesthetic of the film. Austin and I had a strong idea of what we wanted,
And references.
and references of stuff that we liked, and mood was such an important part. That was one of the reasons why we decided to shoot up in Prince Rupert as well. Is that it is the rainiest city in North America. We really only had one day where we wanted sunshine, which was the day on the island, which ended up somehow working out that we got sunshine on that day. But we had so many conversations with Danny about not over lighting stuff. Danny will laugh if when he hears this, but the conversations about moonlight and kind of what darkness actually looks like, and what kind of lighting inside, and not over lighting stuff, and creating some of that atmosphere, and actually using physical atmosphere in these locations that are going to add texture. And as you watch the film, the lighting and the aesthetic changes. We start to desaturate towards the end of the film as we're starting to lose hope as to what's going on. And also, really great kudos to our colorists, Scott McKenzie, and Andrea Clayback, who just brought such incredible vision to what the footage looks like afterwards, and being able to kind of take what we hoped it would look like and bring that to life.
Well, I'm thinking of one case study in particular too, and that's the first scene in Jared's apartment, where Andy and I, and we've used this as a reference, it's one of the most important scenes, I think, in forming how we think about, especially this genre, and how we think about revealing character. And that's the scene from Apocalypse Now when we first meet Marlon Brando. And Martin Sheen finds himself in this space, and Vittorio Storaro very famously told Marlon, this is your pool of light. You choose what of yourself you want to reveal. He was given this small light slit, and over the course of the scene, he gradually used more and more of it, and only at the very end do we actually see a significant amount of his face. And so that scene becomes our homage to that in a way, but
Absolutely.
also what an interesting way to start to tease out this character who is sort of one with the dark in a very, yeah, I guess that's a bit of a Batman reference, as who's played young Bruce Wayne in Gotham for 5 years. And so I think this was something that was a really interesting way that we could work with him to have that be another tool in storytelling. There's always the sort of rhetoric around, visual storytelling and how, oh, lighting can be another character in the whole thing, but we were able to actually find ways to in that scene and others actually kind of harness that, and it becomes addition by subtraction. I mean, yes, so I think we found that it was so much more challenging and time intensive, especially on a tight schedule, to actually set scenes, not just in the dark, but
Well,
have to be crafted so much.
in a story that's rooted in magic realism, to have really authentic lighting was a really important thing to us. So realistically, when you're looking at it, we were trying to use natural lighting circumstances, obviously augmenting with, Danny's famous vapor sodium look that we leaned
A
on.
nice reference for him.
Yeah, but that was kind of the idea, is that all of the sources of light, even though if they're not authentic, should feel authentic, and allowing spaces to be dark. One of my favorite scenes that I watch now for the lighting is when Lily had just met Jared, and she's eating cereal, and it's the first time that she encounters Mary Rose, and it's quite dark in the dining room. But often quite thinking, if you're hanging out in your house, you don't always have the overhead lights on. There's enough light for you to operate, but it's the lighting in your home kind of is a reflection of your mood, of how much you want to be exposed to the world around you. And she's not eating in the dark, but it's not bright, and we don't necessarily see everything, and that sets the tone for the spooky encounter with Mary Rose for this first time.
Well, and I love even just sort of everything that you guys managed to put in here, because I mean, I see so much of obviously what's influenced you guys, and I mean, even thinking back to Hitch, I mean, I see a little bit of, not the Netflix version, like the Good Rebecca. I think of,
Yeah.
Raymond Burr coming into the apartment for the first time with Jimmy Stewart in Rear Window, just to have that sort of idea of how light and darkness can really set mood and tone. And I mean, for you guys, is like that kind of the canon and the oeuvre that you guys find yourselves influenced by? Because in watching the film again, this is very much a throwback to I don't want to say gothic because that feels like overused, but I mean it's almost a mix of some, somewhere in between
A
classic
goth,
70s and really sort of old school cinema.
Well,
yeah,
and more than that too. So throwback, yes, but the era that we throw back to, I think, most explicitly and deliberately is the turn of the century ghost stories.
Mm,
Devil's Backbone, Sixth Sense,
yeah.
the others, Stir of Echoes. It's that era, um, and
Yeah, the
some of
less
that's
is more
visually,
era.
but
The less is more era. Absolutely, yeah.
absolutely, where there was a sort of deliberate quality to the pacing, and being able to actually have the sort of steep in the atmosphere, and the that, as well as some of the way of exploring these difficult themes, um, with sort of maturity, precision, and patience, I guess.
yeah, and I think looking at overall the aesthetic of not wanting to make a Hitchcock movie
Mm.
was really important to us. And one of my favorite things that came out of I think it was our Cinequest premiere, was someone saying, like, what do you think Hitchcock would think of our movie? And I said, I think he would hate it. But a lot of that is, there's some subtle nods to him in there that we did very carefully. The fight scene on the boardwalk using the split diopter, making sure that Lily is in focus, but also the people that she's looking at who don't
I
also
love
see the
that.
fight are in focus. And that, independent film, we don't have all the time in the world. So,
Hello, yeah.
yeah, the time that took to set up, driving us crazy. But at the end of the day, we really loved it. And it's also looking at not feeling the need to move the camera. And I think of so many scenes where we just let the camera be still and let the characters move within the frame, and allow us to build that tension by not actually having the camera flying around, and kind of getting that stillness. And one of my favorite examples of that is in Funny Games, where you have that very long one shot where the all the horror is happening, and you as the audience can't escape because the camera's not leaving that moment. And that was some of the intention that we had behind the approach to the cinematography.
No, and I mean it works so well, especially in a story like this that isn't necessarily rooted in. I mean, I don't want to say good guys and bad guys because obviously we're rooting for we're rooting for Paloma's character, but at the same time, it's like we don't have a sense of that there's going to be an out. Like there isn't a necessarily a resolution, and that's kind of what I dug about this. I mean, for you guys, obviously more and more people are seeing the movie. Like, how do you feel the feedback has been? Because again, it's one of those things where people almost want sort of the resolution almost. And to me, in watching this, while there was, to a degree, a resolution, I kind of love the open-endedness as well.
It means so much to hear that, because that became such a big point of debate with some of our collaborators as well. Where, I think this is the approach that Andy and I take in writing as well, where it's often a matter of the not just the best idea winning, but the idea that's most compatible with with like the germ at the center of the concept.
Yeah.
And I think that's where we push each other to come up with the thing that's sort of like the truest distillation of the big idea. And we had a very strong sense of what we wanted out of that ending, the feeling we wanted out of the ending, which deviates from the original source material too. Um, but that became something that we got very practiced with really holding our ground firmly on what we were wanting to sort of leave viewers with. And that has since become one of the most polarizing things from viewers too, people wanting more, or wanting something which I think of as a huge compliment, because often when I leave a story and I'm not ready for it to be over, even though it has reached a point of finality, it's usually a sign that you're invested.
I think that's the feeling, is kind of that resolution that you're talking about too at the end of the movie. And we keep some of the secrets that the audience doesn't get to know about what happened, and we have our interpretation of that. There's some factual stuff, and there's some stuff that's really subtle. Like a lot of people don't take away that the librarian, played by Gabrielle Rose, at the end of the movie is actually Mary Rose. She eventually came back through time, and
Very subtly alluded to.
she there's a couple small hints in there that we realize by the end of the film. We unmask that the ghosts are just as scared of Jared and Lily as Lily and Jared are scared of the ghosts. There aren't really any bad guys here.
They're all ghosts to each other. It's
Yeah.
mutual
Yeah,
haunting.
exactly. Yeah, yeah.
And, I think we get the sense that when we see the truck parked on the side of the road, and when Lily's humming the call at the end of the movie, we hear Jared echo the call in his humming at the very end of the film, knowing that he's there on the island in presence. That everything kind of worked out. And us knowing too, like when we had that very first encounter with Lily and Jared, and he's got the scar on his head, and he says, "Don't tell Lily you saw Jared." That we know that he made it there at the end of the film. And so, if you piece together the clues, you kind of know that this wasn't, a fairy book happy ending, but we know that there was some peace that was offered by the end of the film. And
Yeah.
the biggest heartbreak is that, dad doesn't get to spend out the rest of his days with both of his daughters.
Yeah.
And that's kind of a bittersweet moment.
And to your point about feedback as well, that's been one of the things that's been, I think we're very proud of where we've landed with the amount of clues and the amount of hand holding in the storytelling, and the fact that people are generally hungry for more, I think has been a good thing. we have been aware, though, that there also is a certain amount of discombobulation that from some people that has also been a really important learning experience for us too. And so I think we stand by this very strongly, and it'd be interesting to see how we would end up taking the lessons from making this film into the next.
Well, and it's one of those things too, because I mean, obviously, some people want to be handheld, and some people want
Yeah,
to, not be. And I mean, to me, this is really such a good balance of giving us resolution, but still giving us plenty to talk to, sort of as the credits roll, and we're not watching the movie anymore. And I mean, I can imagine as storytellers and filmmakers, that's the best thing you want. You don't want people going, "Oh, well, that was good." You want people talking about it
yeah,
afterwards and then theorizing and talking like, "Let's watch it again." But I think
Yeah.
this is going to be this kind of movie, man. But honestly, guys,
yeah.
you've done a great piece of work here. I can't wait for more people to see it, and just
Yeah.
congrats,
Thank you.
both of you, on the time today. Triple A H or whoever want to do it, guys.
Thanks so much,
Seriously, good
David.
work
Yeah.
on the film, and just again, congrats and thank you for the time.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for your time. And thanks again for taking the time to watch the movie.
And don't forget to visit our friends over at Bay Street Video for all your DVD, Blu-ray rental, or purchasing needs this summer, as they are still open for curbside and some mailing delivery as well. Over at 1172 Bay Street, Toronto, Ontario, Canada, you can give them a call at 416-964-9088. That's 416-964-9088. Or send them an email at baystreetvideoto@gmail.com for any of your DVD and Blu-ray needs.